Pick any girl you want, they mocked. The cowboy pointed her. The one you call too big. Red Mesa Station sat on the edge of mapped space, where the stars looked sharper and the laws looked thinner. The place was half metal and half dust. Cargo cranes moved like slow animals. Neon signs buzzed in 3 languages. People came here to trade, to hide, or to start over. Cal Mercer came in quiet. He was a cowboy by habit, not by costume. He wore a plain coat, boots that had seen too many rocks, and a hat that kept sun and snow out of his eyes. His ship was small, scarred, and honest-looking, the kind of ship that did not pretend to be rich. Dock workers barely glanced at him. In Red Mesa, no one cared unless you made trouble or carried big money. Cal walked with the steady pace of someone who had learned not to rush. He went past stalls selling dehydrated food, power cells, and tiny pets in glass cages. He passed gamblers arguing over a hollow card table. He listened without seeming to listen. In a place like this, the air carried information if you let it. He had come for a job. A message had reached him 2 days earlier, a short one. Need escort run. High risk. Pay fair. It had been signed by a broker named Varen Holt. Cal did not trust brokers, but he trusted hunger even less. He also trusted his own rules, and one of them was simple. If someone was in trouble on the frontier, you at least hear them out. He found Holt's office above a noisy market lane. The door was scratched and the walls were thin. Inside, the room smelled like stale coffee and warm electronics. Varen Holt was a thin man with quick eyes, the kind that measured every person like a scale. Mercer, Holt said, forcing a smile. The star cowboy himself. Cal did not correct the title. He just nodded once. You said escort run. Holt leaned back. Sure. But first, let's talk about something else. There's a hiring line today. You know the one. Folks without contracts. Displaced. Refugees. They need work and rides. Some of them are willing to sign on with a captain for a year, 2 years. Cal's eyes narrowed a little. People aren't cargo. Holt lifted his hands as if he meant no harm. Of course. But the station runs on contracts. The market wants labor. The frontier wants hands. And you, Mercer, you could use help. Cal did not answer. He had flown alone for years. Alone meant fewer problems, but it also meant no backup when trouble arrived. Holt's smile widened. Come on. It's a tradition here. Pick a partner and I'll cut the escort fee down. Pick any girl you want. The way Holt said it made Cal's jaw tighten. Not anger, exactly. More like disappointment, like hearing a song played wrong. Cal turned and walked out without saying yes or no. The hiring line was set up in the open market square behind a low fence. A few guards watched from the side, bored and half asleep. People stood in rows with small bags at their feet, trying to look useful without looking desperate. Some were young, some were older. Some had eyes that were too careful. A group of traders stood nearby, laughing loudly. They wore clean coats and expensive boots that had never touched real dirt. One of them, a heavy man with gold rings, spotted Cal and raised his voice for attention. Hey, cowboy, the man called. You picking today? Go on. Pick any girl you want. More laughter rolled through the group. A few people in the line flinched but kept their faces calm. They had learned how to swallow shame to survive. Cal stopped at the fence, not reacting to the laughs. He looked along the line slowly, like he was studying weather signs. He saw the ones who smiled too fast. He saw the ones who tried too hard. He saw a few who looked ready to bolt. He did not judge them. Fear changed people. Hunger changed them too. Near the far end of the line stood a woman who did not perform. She was tall and broad, with shoulders built like she had spent years lifting heavy loads. Her hair was pulled back tight, and there was dust on her sleeves like she had come straight from work. Her face was calm in a guarded way, but her eyes were sharp. She watched the traders, the guards, the exits. She watched everything except the people laughing. One of the traders noticed her and smirked. He nudged his friend and said loud enough for others to hear, "Not that one." Too big. Built like a cargo loader. A few chuckles followed. The woman's eyes did not drop. She did not cry. She did not even look away. She simply shifted her weight and stayed still, as if she had heard worse 100 times and learned it wasn't worth giving them a reaction. Cal felt something click in his mind. Not pity. Respect. He stepped closer to the fence. The heavy trader leaned forward again, enjoying the moment. Well, cowboy, pick one. You want a sweet little thing? Or you want to surprise us? He lifted his hand and pointed. Her, he said. The one you call too big. The laughter stopped like a switch had been flipped. Even the guards turned their heads. The traders blinked as if they had heard wrong. The woman's eyes widened a little. Not with joy, with caution. Like someone had tossed her a rope and she needed to check if it was real or a trick. The heavy trader scoffed. You're joking. Cal didn't smile. No. Holt had followed him out of the office and now stood behind him, looking worried. Mercer, are you sure? There are plenty of... I'm sure. The gate guard opened the small door and waved the woman forward. She stepped out of the line with controlled movements, keeping her bag close. Up close, Cal could see she had scars on her hands and a small burn mark near her wrist, old and healed. Her posture was straight, but her breathing was measured, like she stayed ready for bad news. What's your name? Cal asked. Mara Voss. Skills? Cal asked. Rigging. Repair. Heavy lift. Navigation basics, she said. Then she added, security if needed. You want to work, Mara Voss? Her gaze flicked to the traders, then to Holt, then back to Cal. Work, yes, but I won't be treated like a joke. Cal's voice stayed even. Then don't accept jokes. That answer seemed to confuse her for a moment. She studied him like she was trying to see the trap hidden under the words, but there was no smooth sales pitch in his face. No hunger for control, just a quiet steadiness. Holt cleared his throat. So, Mercer, I assume the deal stands? Cal finally turned to him. Escort job. You said high risk. Holt's smile returned, though it looked thinner now. Right. There's a route to Kestrel Ridge Outpost. Medical crates, water filters, and spare parts. A small colony. They haven't checked in properly in a week. The last courier ship turned back. Said the navigation beacons went strange. Cal looked back at Mara. You hear that? Sounds like someone doesn't want visitors. Cal's mouth tightened slightly, almost a smile. That's what I thought. Holt leaned closer, lowering his voice. Look, Mercer, I'm doing you a favor here. The colony pays well, but if something is wrong out there, it could be rough. You sure you want her? You could pick someone lighter. Cal stared at him. I picked who I picked. The traders had lost interest now that the joke was not theirs anymore. They muttered and walked away, annoyed that the moment had turned serious. Cal watched them go, then looked at Mara. You got a place to sleep tonight? He asked. Mara shook her head. Not a safe one. We leave before morning. As they walked, Mara kept a careful distance at first. She did not crowd him. She did not try to charm him. She moved like a person who had learned to survive without begging. But after a few minutes she spoke, her voice quiet. Why me? She asked. Cal kept his eyes forward. 'Cause you didn't beg and you didn't show off, you watched. You stayed steady. That matters. Mara's hands tightened on her bag strap. People don't choose me for that. Then they've been choosing wrong. They reached Cal's ship, a compact frontier hauler named Dustwake. Its paint was faded and its hull carried old marks from micrometeor hits. But the landing gear was solid and the engines sounded healthy. Cal ran a hand along the ramp control and opened it. Inside, the ship was clean in a simple way, not fancy, functional. A small galley, 2 sleeping bunks, tool lockers, and a cockpit with worn seats. Mara stepped in and looked around like someone seeing shelter after too many nights outside. Cal tossed her a spare blanket from a storage bin. Pick a bunk. We'll talk terms after you've eaten. No contract? Cal shook his head. Not until you decide you want one. She slowly set her bag down and sat on the edge of the bunk like she was afraid the floor would vanish. Cal moved to the galley and warmed a meal pack. The hum of the ship wrapped around them, steady and low. For a few minutes there was only the sound of heating coils and distant station noise. Then the cockpit console chimed. Cal walked over and frowned at the screen. A signal had slipped past the station filters, weak but clear enough to read. It wasn't the escort job details. It was a distress call, old and repeating. Like a voice trapped in a loop. Any ship, please, Kestrel Ridge, where... The message broke into static. Mara stood behind him, close enough now to see the screen. Her voice turned tight. That's not a normal delay. That's someone cutting the line. Cal's eyes stayed on the blinking signal. Yeah, he said. Another tone sounded, an alert from the navigation panel. The beacon route to Kestrel Ridge had shifted, as if the map itself was being rewritten in small pieces. Mara swallowed. You still going? Cal didn't hesitate. He reached for the engine start sequence. We leave before morning, he repeated, and this time it sounded less like a plan and more like a promise. Mara watched him, and something in her expression changed. Not trust yet, but a small opening where trust could grow. Outside, Red Mesa Station kept laughing, trading, and pretending everything was normal. But out in the dark frontier, something was wrong, and the dust wake was about to ride straight into it. The dust wake glided into the quiet of space, leaving the glittering lights of Red Mesa Station behind. Stars stretched in long, silent lines as the ship's engines hummed, a steady rhythm that seemed to push all fear and doubt to the edges of the cabin. Cal Mercer sat in the cockpit, hands steady on the controls. Mara Voss leaned against the frame of the doorway, her arms crossed, eyes scanning the dim interior like she expected trouble to appear at any second. Not used to this kind of quiet? Cal asked without looking at her. Mara shook her head. Quiet is fine. I'm used to being alone. Her voice was flat, but there was a hint of something behind it. Maybe curiosity, maybe caution. Cal didn't answer at first. He had noticed her watch everything since they met, noticing movements, reading expressions, scanning exits. It wasn't just awareness. It was instinct, sharp and disciplined. He respected that. You'll get used to having company, he said finally. Mara gave a short laugh. Company doesn't stay long out here. Some do. They rode through a patch of scattered asteroid debris. The sensors blinked, picking up tiny rocks tumbling slowly through the void. Cal navigated carefully, keeping the dust wake steady. This path isn't safe for slow reflexes, he said. You need to trust your instincts. Mara tilted her head, studying him. I can handle it? I don't doubt that, Cal replied. His eyes never left the control panel. For hours the ship moved through empty space. Neither spoke much. The silence between them filled with the hum of the engines and the occasional ping of navigational data. Mara finally sat down, pulling her bag close. Tell me about the escort, she said. Why Kestrel Ridge? Why take a job nobody else wants? Cal shrugged slightly. People in trouble don't always get noticed. Some folks are too far from the stations or too small for the corporations to care. Kestrel Ridge isn't profitable. It's just a place people call home. Someone has to keep it alive. Mara's gaze softened slightly. So you don't care about the pay? I care about the work, Cal said simply. Money comes later. She studied him, then nodded. I like that. Most people only see the credits. Hours passed, and the distress call repeated on the console. The voice was faint, distorted, but desperate. Any ship, please. Kestrel Ridge. Danger. Help. Cal frowned. Someone's been trapped there for days, and it's not an accident. Mara's eyes sharpened. Sabotage? Could be someone trying to scare off anyone who might interfere. Could be rogue machines left behind from the colony's old mining equipment. Hard to say without seeing it. She studied the blinking light on the console. Then we need to be careful. This isn't just a delivery. Cal nodded. No, it's not. By the time the dust wake approached Kestrel Ridge, the sun was low on the horizon of the nearby gas giant. The colony was a small cluster of reinforced buildings, half buried in dust and rock, with landing pads barely visible. The exterior lights flickered weakly, as if struggling to stay on. Cal guided the ship down, keeping the dust wake low and slow. Mara moved to the co-pilot seat, watching the sensors and controls. There's movement, she said quietly. Not human. Machines. Rogue droids. Likely old mining units left to guard equipment. Some of them can be dangerous if they detect heat or movement. Mara nodded. Then we don't want to be detected. The ship touched down smoothly. Cal cut the engines and waited a moment before opening the hatch. The air smelled dusty, metallic, and faintly of ozone. Mara followed him out, hands ready, fingers brushing the grips of tools she carried on her belt. They moved carefully across the landing pad. Dust swirled in small clouds under their boots. The colony buildings were silent except for occasional clanks of shifting metal, the sound echoing through the empty structures. Keep close, Cal whispered. Sensors show heat signatures inside, but it's scattered. Someone's hiding. Could be settlers, could be more machines. Mara's eyes darted from building to building. We need to find the signal source first. If we locate it, we can figure out who's trapped and how to get them out. They entered the main building, which had been a storage and workshop center. Broken equipment lay scattered across the floor, some still sparking faintly. Dust floated in streaks from vents. The distress signal grew louder on the consoles they moved closer. A sudden clatter echoed behind them. Mara spun, grabbing a short grav pole to steady herself. Cal raised a hand, signaling silence. Out of the shadows, a small group of settlers appeared, haggard, scared, and thin from lack of proper rations. "You're here!" one man exclaimed.
"Thank the stars." Cal nodded. "We're here to help."
"Everyone stay calm, follow instructions, and no one gets hurt." Mara stepped forward. "Where are the others?" "Trapped," said the woman at his side. "In the east storage bays. The doors are jammed, and the old security drones won't let anyone in." Cal frowned. "Drones are likely set to defend the area. They'll attack anything that moves without identification. We need to distract them while we free the settlers." Mara looked at him. "I can handle that. Gravity stabilizers and heavy lifts. I can jam the drones long enough for people to escape." Cal gave her a small nod. "Good. I'll lead the settlers to safety. Stick with me if anything goes wrong." The two moved to the east bays. Mara quickly set up her equipment, sending out electromagnetic pulses to disrupt drone signals. Sparks flew as machines stumbled, trying to recalibrate. The settlers hesitated, eyes wide, but Cal encouraged them forward. "Step carefully. Watch the floor. Don't rush." Mara's hands flew over the controls, adjusting frequencies, keeping the drones busy. Some droids began moving erratically, spinning in circles, unable to lock on to heat signatures. Cal guided the first few settlers through the doors, helping them over broken panels and debris. One of the settlers, a young girl, tripped, and Cal caught her in time. "It's all right," he said. "You're safe now." The next group followed, moving steadily, their fear replaced with hope. Mara's pulses kept the remaining drones occupied long enough for all to get out. When the last settler crossed the threshold, a loud alarm sounded. One of the more advanced drones had bypassed Mara's jamming and powered up. It lunged at the settlers. Mara reacted instantly, adjusting the grav field to lift a fallen crate. It slammed into the drone, sending sparks flying. Cal grabbed a nearby power rod, slicing a line through the drone's circuits. The machine fell still. The settlers gasped. Mara exhaled slowly, wiping sweat from her brow. "That should hold them for now," she said. Cal looked at her with faint admiration. "You handled that well." Mara gave a short shrug. "I've handled worse." The settlers gathered around them, faces tired but grateful.
One older man stepped forward. "You two saved our lives."
"We thought we'd be trapped there forever." Cal looked around at the group. "You'll be safe. We'll get you back to Red Mesa or another secure colony. You just need to stay calm and follow instructions." Mara moved to one side, observing the colony's remaining systems. "We also need to figure out why this place was left unprotected. Something here isn't right. Equipment was tampered with, drones reprogrammed, someone didn't want help to arrive. I suspected as much from the start. Kestrel Ridge has been isolated, probably deliberately. Whoever did this wants control over whatever the settlers found or mined. That's why the distress signal was left looping." Mara's eyes narrowed. "Then we need to be ready. More trouble could be coming." Cal gave a small smile, the first of the day. "You were right to come with me. Your skills made all the difference." Mara paused, considering his words. She had been underestimated all her life for being too big or too strong. Today, her size, strength, and skill had saved dozens. Yet there was no praise, only quiet acknowledgement. She felt a new sense of purpose, standing next to this quiet cowboy who chose her when others mocked her. As the sun of the gas giant dipped further below the horizon, painting the colony in red and gold light, Cal and Mara prepared the settlers for transport. Cal checked the ship's systems while Mara organized the group, ensuring everyone had enough food and water for the trip. The distress call faded behind them, replaced by silence and the hum of the dustwake engines. Both Cal and Mara knew this was only the beginning. Kestrel Ridge had been saved for now, but the forces that wanted it isolated were still out there, watching, waiting for the next move. Mara looked at Cal. "So what's next?" "We keep moving. We stay ahead of them. And we make sure no one gets hurt again." Mara nodded, a quiet determination settling in her features. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she belonged somewhere. Not just in a colony, not just among strangers, but beside someone who saw her for what she could do, not what she looked like. The dust wake rose from the dusty surface, engines humming steadily, carrying them toward uncertain danger and new horizons. And for the first time, Mara felt ready for it. The dust wake glided through the stars, carrying the rescued settlers away from Kestrel Ridge. The settlement faded behind them, half swallowed by the red haze of the gas giant below. Silence filled the cabin, broken only by the soft hum of the engines and the occasional murmur of the settlers as they huddled together, exhausted but alive. Cal Mercer stayed at the controls, eyes scanning the navigation readouts. Mara sat nearby, her arms crossed, still watching the group carefully. Every now and then she would glance at Cal, measuring his calm confidence, trying to decide what made him trust her the way he did. "You handled yourself well back there," Cal said quietly, breaking the silence. Mara shook her head. "I just did what needed to be done." "The drones were predictable," Cal smirked. "Predictable, maybe, but you moved faster than most would. And you saved people." She looked down at her hands, as if weighing his words. "I've been underestimated all my life. People laughed at me, told me I was too big, too strong, too clumsy. Maybe I'm just finally learning to be noticed for the right reasons." Cal's voice softened. "You were noticed today for what matters." Mara met his eyes, and for a moment there was no fear, no hesitation, only understanding. Then she looked away, focusing on the quiet settlers resting in the cabin. Hours passed. The ship moved smoothly along the frontier route, avoiding the usual asteroid traffic. The settlers slowly recovered, sharing quiet conversations and small smiles. Mara checked the life support systems, confirming that oxygen levels, temperature, and food supplies were all within safe ranges. She had done this countless times before on mining ships and frontier haulers, but today it felt different. It wasn't just about survival. It was about protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. Cal spoke without looking up from the controls. They'll be fine once we reach a safe station. Red Mesa or somewhere else that can handle them. The important part is that they trust us now. That counts for more than any contract. Trust is earned, not given. And you earned mine by seeing me, not laughing at me. I don't care about appearances. I care about ability. About people who can survive and make the right choices. The settlers had begun to talk quietly among themselves. They asked questions about Cal and Mara, about their journey, about the dangers they had faced. Cal answered politely, but without unnecessary detail. Mara answered technical questions about the drones and systems, surprising the settlers with her knowledge. A young boy finally spoke up, his voice trembling slightly. "Are there more dangerous things out there?" Cal glanced at him, keeping his tone calm. "Out there? Yes. But danger doesn't define you. How you respond to it does." The boy nodded, gripping the edge of his seat. Mara reached over and placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "And we'll be with you until you're safe," she said. The mood in the cabin shifted. The settlers were no longer just survivors. They were people who believed someone had their back, and they looked at Mara differently now, not as the too big girl, but as someone capable and brave. As the dust wake moved deeper into space, a new signal appeared on the sensors. It was faint, encrypted, and unfamiliar. Cal leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. Another distress call? Or a trap? Mara scanned the readout quickly. Signal matches patterns from corporate satellites in the sector. Someone is monitoring us. I suspected as much. Whoever left the drones at Kestrel Ridge didn't want witnesses. And now they're tracking us. Mara's expression hardened. Then we need to prepare. They won't stop until they've tested us. Or worse, until they control us. I know. And we'll be ready. Together. They spent the next few hours preparing the ship. Cal ran systems checks, verified weapons and defensive modules, and ensured that the Dustwake's navigation and sensor arrays were fully operational. Mara assisted with power distribution, reinforced the hull shields, and adjusted the stabilizers to handle sudden maneuvers. By the time the twin suns rose over the horizon of a nearby planet, the Dustwake was ready. Cal and Mara moved to the cockpit, side by side, as the settlers watched nervously from the cabin. Cal spoke quietly. "We're going to pass through the sector quietly. No unnecessary alerts. But if they try to interfere, we defend ourselves. Simple as that." Mara nodded, her hands resting on the console. "Simple," she echoed, though her voice carried a note of determination. As they approached a narrow corridor between two asteroid belts, the ship's sensors picked up movement. Small fast drones darted through space, scanning for heat signatures. Cal's eyes narrowed. They're testing us. Mara adjusted the grav field stabilizers. I can create a false signature, make them think we're somewhere else. Cal nodded. Do it. Mara's hands moved quickly, and the sensors lit up with false readings. The drone swerved and chased phantom signatures, leaving the dust wake unobserved. The settlers watched in awe as Mara manipulated the systems, her confidence and skill shining. Cal guided the ship through the corridor, weaving between asteroids with precise movements. Mara's false signatures kept the drones distracted long enough for them to pass safely. Once clear, Cal exhaled slowly.
Good work. That could have ended badly.
Mara gave a small smile, a rare expression for her. We make a good team, the settlers whispered among themselves, noting how the two of them coordinated seamlessly. They were no longer just passengers. They were witnesses to leadership, bravery, and skill. As the dust wake approached the edge of the monitored sector, another signal appeared. This one was stronger, more direct, and clearly a warning. Turn back or face consequences, the message said, repeating in multiple frequencies. Cal's eyes hardened. They don't understand who we are. We don't turn back. Mara's hands tightened on the console. Then we show them we won't be threatened. They moved in silence for a few moments, the weight of the situation settling over them. Both knew the next encounter could be dangerous, but neither hesitated. They had saved lives before. They would do it again. The dust wake emerged from the monitored sector, and the starfield ahead seemed empty, calm, and deceptively quiet. Mara leaned back slightly, catching her breath. That was close. Cal glanced at her, a faint smile on his lips. Close is part of the job. You handled yourself well. Mara's eyes met his, and for the first time, there was no doubt, no fear. She had earned her place beside him, not because of size or appearance, but because of courage, skill, and determination. The settlers began to relax, some even smiling for the first time in days. Cal and Mara shared a quiet nod, acknowledging their success without words. They had faced danger together, and it had strengthened the bond between them. But the universe was vast, and they knew this was not the end. Whoever had interfered at Kestrel Ridge would not stop easily. There would be more tests, more threats, and more opportunities to prove themselves. As the dust wake sailed through open space, Cal and Mara prepared the settlers for the next phase of the journey. They spoke quietly, giving instructions, sharing knowledge, and ensuring everyone was ready for whatever came next. Mara glanced at Cal. You trust me? Cal's gaze met hers. Completely. Today proved that. A small smile touched her lips. Then I trust you too. For the first time, Mara felt like she had a partner she could rely on. Not just in skill, but in judgment, in courage, and in understanding. She was no longer the one people doubted. She was someone who mattered, someone capable, someone seen. The dust wake moved on, carrying them toward uncertain horizons, with stars stretching endlessly ahead. The frontier was vast, dangerous, and unpredictable, but Cal Mercer and Mara Voss were ready to face it together. And for the first time in a long time, Mara allowed herself to believe that she could survive. Not just survive, but thrive, in the company of someone who chose her for her strength, not her size. The dust wake drifted in silence, stars stretching endlessly around them. The settlers huddled in the cabin, some asleep, some whispering quietly, all safe for now. Cal Mercer stayed at the controls, eyes scanning the navigation panels for anomalies. Mara Voss leaned against the doorway, alert and steady, her hands brushing the tools at her belt. Nothing yet, Cal said quietly, not taking his eyes from the readouts. Mara shook her head slightly. Not yet, but they're out there. Cal's jaw tightened. I know. They won't stop until they test us again. Mara crossed her arms, her eyes narrowing. Then we give them a reason to back off. Cal gave a small nod. Exactly, and we do it together. The dust wake sensors suddenly pinged. Small blips, fast-moving, approaching from multiple directions. Drones. Not the slow, predictable kind from Kestrel Ridge, but faster, sleeker, more aggressive. Someone was sending reinforcements. Cal adjusted the ship's trajectory. We're not running. We're going to lead them into a trap. Mara tilted her head. Trap? Cal gave a faint smile. You'll see. Just be ready to move fast. The first wave of drones appeared, glinting in the starlight. They swarmed toward the dust wake, scanning, probing, testing. Mara moved to the controls, sending pulses to jam their targeting systems. Sparks flickered across the sensors as the drones struggled to lock onto the ship. Cal guided the dustwake through an asteroid belt. The rocks were uneven, jagged, and sharp. The ship weaved between them, engines humming in precise rhythm. Mara's pulses kept the drones distracted, making them chase phantom signals that led them into tight clusters of asteroids. Several drones collided and exploded in silent bursts, debris floating harmlessly in the void. The settlers watched in awe, whispering among themselves. They had never seen a ship maneuver like this, nor a team work together with such precision.
Stay calm.
Follow instructions if we have to land. Mara's hands flew across the console, adjusting the false signatures and grav field stabilizers. They're adapting. More are coming. Cal nodded. Good. That's exactly what I wanted. They'll expose their patterns if they keep pushing. More drones arrived, faster this time. Mara's pulses slowed them temporarily, but Cal noticed a pattern in their movements. They're trying to hurt us, he said. They want to push us somewhere controlled. Then we lead them where we want. Cal smiled faintly. Follow my lead. He guided the dustwake deeper into the asteroid field, twisting and turning through narrow passages. The drones followed, predictable in their pursuit. Mara adjusted the grav fields, creating traps and obstacles. Several drones collided with each other or with floating asteroids, disabling themselves. Then a sudden alarm sounded. A larger ship emerged from the shadows, sleek, metallic, and armed. It had been hiding, waiting for them to reach the right position. Cal's eyes narrowed. Corporate escort. They want us alive, but trapped, and they brought friends. Then we make them regret it. The dustwake moved quickly, dodging the first blasts from the larger ship. Cal guided it through a narrow pass where the larger ship could not follow. Mara manipulated the grav field stabilizers, sending debris and phantom signatures to block sensors and mislead targeting systems. The smaller drones were now caught in the middle of the asteroid field, colliding with debris and each other. Explosions flickered in the distance, but the dustwake remained unharmed. Cal glanced at Mara. Ready for the next step? Mara nodded. Let's finish this. He guided the dustwake into a tight passage where the larger ship could not maneuver. Using the ship's magnetic pulse generator, Mara sent a shockwave through the asteroids, disabling several drones and jamming the larger ship's systems. Sparks and smoke trailed behind the enemy as it struggled to regain control. The settlers held their breath, some gripping the edges of their seats, but Cal and Mara remained calm, focused, and precise. Every movement, every adjustment was deliberate. The larger ship finally backed off, retreating with the remaining drones. Cal watched it leave, ensuring it didn't regroup for another attack. Mara exhaled slowly. That should keep them busy for a while. Not forever, but enough to get the settlers somewhere safe. The dustwake moved out of the asteroid field and into open space. The settlers cheered quietly, relief evident in their faces. One of the older men stepped forward. You two, you saved us. Not just from the drones, but from being forgotten out there. Cal nodded. You're safe now. That's all that matters. Mara looked around at the settlers, her expression softening. And we'll make sure you reach a proper colony. Somewhere secure. The young boy from earlier approached Mara. You're really strong. Mara gave a small smile. I learned to be. But strength isn't just muscle. It's knowing what to do when people need help. The boy nodded slowly, eyes wide. I think I understand. Cal watched the interaction quietly. He noticed the change in Mara, the subtle shift from someone cautious and guarded to someone confident and acknowledged. He had chosen her when others mocked her, and now her strength was visible not just to him but to everyone in the cabin. The journey continued, the dustwake cutting through space toward a secure colony. Mara helped organize the settlers, checking supplies, giving instructions, and ensuring everyone felt safe. Hours passed. The stars stretched endlessly, silent and constant. Cal finally allowed himself a moment to glance at Mara. You did well today. Mara's eyes met his, steady and unflinching. We did well. Together. Together. The settlers had begun to settle, some even resting for the first time in days. Mara moved to the cockpit, standing beside Cal. They watched the stars, silent partners in a vast, dangerous universe. Then the communication console chimed. A colony nearby opened a channel. This is Dawnspire Station, a calm voice said. We've detected your approach. Welcome. We have docking cleared for all ships. Cal nodded. Understood. Dustwake here. Preparing for landing with passengers. Mara exhaled slowly. We made it. Safe landing, finally. Not just safe, we proved ourselves. And they saw it. The settlers, the drones, even the corporation. We're not to be underestimated. Mara's expression softened slightly. I feel different, stronger, not just because of the fight, but because someone chose to see me for what I could do. Cal didn't respond, only gave a small, quiet nod. The dust wake descended toward Dawnspire Station. Lights reflected off its metal hull as the landing bay approached. Settlers prepared to disembark, moving with careful excitement. Mara assisted them, giving instructions and making sure everyone had what they needed. Once all were safely docked, Cal and Mara stood together on the landing bay, watching the settlers walk toward the station. They were alive, safe, and grateful. Cal turned to Mara. This is only the beginning. There will be more. More danger, more tests. But now you know, you're capable of facing it. And you won't be alone. Mara nodded, her gaze steady. I know, and I trust you. Then we're ready. The station lights reflected in her eyes as she looked at him. Ready for what? The stars, the dangers, the people who need help, and each other. Mara's lips curved into a small, confident smile. Then let's go. Together. The dust wake powered up again, engines humming steadily, carrying them into space once more. Stars stretched endlessly ahead, silent and unyielding. The frontier awaited, filled with danger, challenges, and new opportunities. Cal and Mara stood side by side in the cockpit, partners not just in skill, but in trust and respect. They had chosen each other when others doubted. They had faced danger together, and they were ready for whatever the universe would throw at them next. As the dust wake disappeared into the vastness of space, Mara felt a quiet certainty she had never felt before. She was seen, respected, and strong. She was not too big. She was not overlooked. She was exactly who she needed to be. Cal glanced at her, a faint, approving smile on his face. Let's keep moving, he said. Mara nodded, her hand brushing the controls. Let's see what comes next. And with that, the dust wake sailed into the stars, carrying two unlikely partners and a group of survivors toward an uncertain, dangerous, but hopeful future. Together, they were ready for anything.